Hey there, YouTube. Welcome back. Another car commute. I think this is number 4 that we're on. The sun's finally out today after this gloomy winter weather. Working on a weekend. Not my favorite. Turn the air off. It sounds a little weird. Not my favorite, but a little bit shorter of a work day, and nothing's wrong with a little bit of extra money. So I want to talk about a little bit of tech today. I'm not going to talk about politics. I want to talk about smartphones. Specifically, third-party smartphones. We've got a lot of them, and they're getting pretty darn popular. The OnePlus One, for example. I've got one. I've got the OnePlus One and the OnePlus One, or the OnePlus 2, or the OnePlus One X, or something like that. I've got that. I wasn't a huge fan of it because by the time... got hair in my mouth. By the time they got that to market, the technology was already old, especially with the new one. It's a little more budget friendly, but there are better options. So the OnePlus One, I think, fell through the crack, and I don't think that's going to be very successful. I love their operating system, but here's the big kicker. But before I talk about this big kicker, I want to talk about the NextBit Robin. NextBit is another third-party Kickstarter fun company that started making phones, and they make a beautiful phone. And it's partially modular, and you can kind of customize it just like any other phone you can nowadays, like the Nexus lineup from Google. But NextBit is interesting because of its uniqueness. It's inexpensive. It's a very good blend of all the things that a lot of other companies aren't. The only problem that I see with that and with all these third-party smartphones is nobody endorses them. Nobody cares about them. If you have, whatever your mobile carrier is, whether that's Verizon or AT&T or Sprint or Vodafone or whatever you got, they don't necessarily accept those. Verizon, for example, you can't take any phone to Verizon and expect them to just activate it and it be able to work. It has to be on a certain frequency. It has to be, either CDMA or GSM or ES, whatever. There's a whole bunch of different bands that phones work on, and certain carriers work on certain bands. So not only do you have to have the right band, you still have to have permission from your carrier. You can't just take any old phone in there and expect to slap a SIM card in there and have it to work, because they have to endorse some of that product, some of that liability, so it's not screwing up their network in any way. And a lot of companies are reluctant to just let any old carrier, any old customer bring in a phone and expect it to, be able to use it on their network. For example, I built my own smartphone. But before I did that, the smartphone that I built, I had to check with the carriers, and I think the only carrier in the area was garbage T-Mobile, because Sprint and Verizon and AT&T and a lot of other these major carriers would not let me just bring any old phone onto their network. So that's a huge problem. Sure, you can go buy these cheap third-party phones, not from Samsung or not from Apple. You can get a OnePlus One. You can build your own phone like I did. You can get, Xiaomi Mi's or all those Chinese phones that they got laying around. You can buy anything you want, but as long as the carrier, will be able to take it. I know, and I hear a lot on the YouTube channel of a lot of people buying these phones or building their own phones and taking them to their carrier, and they're like, no, I am not letting you put this on our network. For whatever reason, whether it's a liability or whether it's, security issues, or, they don't know, what's going to happen with it, or maybe it's not even the right, hardware to be able to work on the network. So that's that. I love that there are a lot of these companies sprouting up with new ideas and new phones. I love that the market is expanding, but I think the carriers are going to hold a lot of people back until you get somebody like, Google with Project Fi, or, just some carrier that you can really bring any phone to. But at least in my location, it's very closed circuit. You've got to be very, very careful what kind of phones you're bringing onto the network. And I understand that, where the carriers are coming from. Next, I mentioned briefly about VR, and it's sort of a new emerging hobby of mine, and it's this is definitely a year for VR. VR's been around for quite some time now, but I think this is really the year where consumer-ready versions are going to be out. No more beta crap, no more alpha crap, no more closed market testing and other things like that, get all that garbage out of there. I think it's finally ready for mainstream consumers now. So I've been getting involved in that, and it's been good. Google says they're coming out with their own headset. It's standalone, whatever that means. Whether it doesn't need a PC or something like that. But that worries me as to what kind of infrastructure it's going to work with. And apparently they say it's going to be completely wireless, which is ridiculous because I don't think there's anything that's completely wireless. Oh, what about my wireless speakers and my wireless headphones that I have? Well, those aren't wireless. Because what happens when the battery runs out? My smartphone, for example, it's wireless. But what happens when, it's got 2% battery left? I have to plug it back in, and then when I plug it back in, then what does it become? Another wired device. Speakers, for example. I get this question all the time when I used to work in the audio industry. Oh, you got any wireless speakers? No, there's no such thing. Even if I do have a wireless, what about my Bluetooth speaker? Yeah, what happens when the batteries run out? What happens when, your source, a phone, a Bluetooth device, doesn't have any more power in it anymore? Then what are you going to do? You got to plug something in, or if the batteries run out, you'll have to plug it in to charge it or change the batteries. There's nothing that's really wireless. So it's kind of silly to have that notion that Google's headset is going to be wireless, because sure, it might have a battery pack in it, it might be well contained, but I'm sure you'll have to charge it. And I'll be really interesting to see what kind of battery life it has, because all the technology that has to go into that'll be pretty impressive. For example, the Oculus VR headsets for Samsung devices, it is wireless, but all of it comes from the phone as the workhorse. The phone does all the rendering. The phone is also the battery pack. It's all done on a standalone device. And Google might do the same thing with their devices, but it's all speculation right now. Another thing with it being wireless, if it's really truly wireless and you've got to do wireless displays, holy Christ, are wireless displays freaking horrible. Of all my experience with WiDi devices and Miracast and all that other garbage, it is horrendously unreliable. And it functions on like a 2.4 gigahertz frequency or something over the wireless network. And when you don't have that cable, reliability goes straight down the tube. So it's just I appreciate the gusto of some of these companies, but I think that they let their marketing guys make a lot of decisions as to the direction of the product, wherein they should be really consulting somebody like an IT guy to even consider the feasibility of the product before putting it to market. Lighting is probably weird right now. I've got the sun up and down. I've got some bumpy roads that I'm driving on right now. It's just started to snow again. You probably can't see it where we're driving. But yeah, I want to get a better camera in here. I'm still shooting this with my cell phone, and it only shoots at like 15 frames or something like that. It is a front-facing camera, so I can see what I'm doing. But so I want to get some better equipment in here and try to get some lighting in here. But maybe once these gain a little bit of popularity. If you have watched it till the end now, I appreciate you watching. I don't know how popular these are. I want to keep doing these because it's a nice way for me to at least talk about things that go on in my head and things that I see. But maybe these will get popular someday, or maybe I'll do 20 of these and they'll just not be worth it, and I might end it. But keep up the good feedback. If you have any, let me know, and we'll see you probably Monday. Today's Saturday right now. Sunday's going to be pretty busy. I've got a lot of work to do tomorrow, chores and other shit like that. And then Monday, I'll probably be back with the usual commute vlogs and other things like that. So stay tuned, guys. I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe if you like what you see. And we'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for hanging around.